CDC says we should be doubling up our masks. Oh, hey, shiny crafty people. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Tim Totten, and today I want to talk to you about some videos I've been seeing online for covers for surgical masks. You know, this sort of standard throwaway surgical disposable mask that, of course, we probably have had to go in a pinch to wear if we don't have our own or we've been given them. Well, I saw some people making covers for them, and that's what this is right here. You'll see the same earpieces coming out. But the difference is this one has a surgical mask inside. My design has it inside there. And I want to show you how to do this today on the channel. So, yeah, we're going to go to the cutting table in just a minute. But before that, I just want to really point out very specifically that the CDC has recently come through with guidance saying that the most effective way to stop COVID in terms of prevention would be to double mask. In other words, wear a mask like this, and they say tie the earpieces here and then cover it over with a fabric mask. But if we make this kind that I'm going to show you today, it's still relying only on the elastics of the surgical mask. And so it's not exactly going to get the seal that the CDC wants you to get. So while as much as I'm really excited about showing this to you and want to show you a way to add a little protection, this is not in lieu of the CDC's recommendation that you wear 2 masks. So this is not like wearing 2 masks. Just want to point that out for you now before we actually go down to the cutting table, so you don't feel like this is the perfect answer for that. But it is a nice way to add a little something extra and give yourself a couple more layers to be breathing through. So now we can go down to the cutting table and see what we need to get started. All right, so we're down here at the cutting table, and we're gonna need a couple things. I'm gonna need some fabric, and I chose 2 different fabrics so we can get sort of a inside and outside, so to speak. I am gonna need a mask to help create my design for it. Some pins or some clips. I like to use these Wonder Clips. I'm gonna show you how to use those today. Pair of scissors, a rotary cutter, the way I'm gonna do it, or you can use a pen and draw everything on. Of course, I'm gonna use some cutting grids to help do that along with my self-healing table. And then I have some bodkins. This is a stiletto / bodkin that from Fons and Porter, or you can use from the company that sells these things called Purple Things, although this one's not purple, but it's really helpful. It's got a point at this end, it's got a flat piece, and you can also put elastic through casings that way. So we're gonna use all of these as we get together. Now here's what I've designed for us. And you'll see this sort of, this is basically the back pattern. This part here with the darts, and then these things flip down and get sewn on to create that. So I'm going to show you a better version of the one I created as the sample, and we'll do that today. So we're going to cut out this design, and I've used the measurements off of a standard disposable mask, and these are about 7 inches wide. Let's see, not quite 7 inches by not quite 4 inches tall. And when you stretch them out, they get to about not quite 6 inches this way. So I know you'll have them stretched out most of the time. So we need to create a design that kind of goes up like that. And that's why we have this with the darts. So it takes it from 6 inches here down to 4 on the sides. So let's go ahead and cut this out of our 2 materials. What I'm going to do is go ahead and stack the materials on top of one another. And I might as well stack them right sides together. That would make the most sense. And so I will stack them right sides together and get this edge here. I've already pre-washed these and ironed them, but you could use your iron and just iron them together if you chose to, to get them to stick together. And what we're going to do next is I'm going to use this as a nice straight edge along here, and I will, I can, if I want to, mark with a pen, and I'm going to need basically 11.5 inches. I'm going to start here though. I'm going to go up. I'm going to create a line at the bottom and just cut it straight across the bottom. Using a line here to give me the straight line. So I line it up on this side and then just cut. Get rid of that fabric. And then what I would do is I can measure it up 11.5. And that's going to give us the mark where we need to cut it later. And I'll just use my pen if I feel like it to mark on there. Now I know I'm going to go up 2.5 inches. You'll see here I'm going to go up 2.5 inches and put a mark for my 1, 2.5. Put a mark for my dart that's going to go in, and then the dart is 1.5 inches wide, so I mark off 1.5, And then from there, I can go up another 2.5 inches, 1, 2.5. And that marks our center point. So our dart's gonna be here, our center point is there. And then we need another 5 inches after that, which will take us right to that point that we drew. Perfect, and then I can just do the same thing after I cut the width. So I need 7.5 inches wide. Now on this cutter, I have an extra 1/2 inch over here. So if I put it at 7.5, which really is the 1 inch mark, and go over, I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.5. And I'll just go ahead and cut that up there. And I can do the same measurements on the other side. So I'll come along here and mark at, remember here, 2.5. Put a mark, go up 1.5 inches for that dart that's gonna be in there, and then go up another 2.5, and from there go up 5. So from 6.5 to 11. All right, and that allows me to mark off, make sure I did all the measurements correct. 2.5. Yes, I did, 2.5. Those go, those match. And 11.5, actually, not 11, 11.5. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and mark and chop off this end here. So I'm basically getting a rectangle that's 7.5 by 11.5. I've got that now. And now I have my marks. Now I'm not gonna put this one in because in fact, this one will be handled a little bit later, but I am gonna go ahead and put in my darts. And the way to add my darts in would be to find the midpoint between these marks that we did, and then measure over. So I know that's 1.5 inches wide, which means I can put that mark at 3/4 of an inch, put the mark on the other side at 3/4 of an inch. I've marked here and here. And then I can easily, if I put my 0 down here at the end, I know that my darts are, let me just measure back again to make sure I know exactly how big I made them on here. I made them 2.5 inches across. So I'm gonna mark at 2.5, put a point there at 2.5. From the other side, I'm gonna go to 2.5. All right, so now I have those 2 marks, and I'm gonna use my pencil here. I will, I'm gonna print this out I'm gonna create this as a file that you can actually download. So you'll be able to download that later. And I'm just gonna go ahead and mark with this. Now I could, if I wanted, just to have folded these together and then cut them with my rotary cutter. But I think this is more fun to show you what I'm doing. Okay, look at that. So now these are the darts we're gonna chop out so that it'll form to our face a little better. Okay, so those are the marks. We're gonna cut those darts out. The last thing we have to do is we have to add in this cut at the top. So there's 1.5 and 1.5 inches, and then it's gonna go down 3 inches. So if I use one of my marking pens, my marking grids, and I can mark at 1.5 here, and I can go down the other side and mark at 1.5 again. And then I'm gonna go down 3 inches. So I can actually put my 3-inch mark right along the edge there and measure down, and then just turn the corner here. Now I wanna be a little careful because then I'm gonna come do the same thing on the other side, right? So I'm gonna measure to the 3-inch mark along the top here, and then continue that mark. So now I have the things that I need to cut off. I'm gonna cut this section out. I'm gonna cut out those 2 dart points. Now I'm gonna use my rotary cutter, and I could, if I was concerned, I would use my my square as well, but I'm actually pretty good at cutting with a rotary cutter. Now you may not feel as comfortable, so I would suggest you get your scissors out and cut it with your scissors. Or you can come back in here and use your rotary cutter to give you a little bit of comfort. The only thing you have to make sure of is that you check that all your little threads popped out before you pull this thing apart. The last thing we're gonna do is our darts. In fact, I'll just use my scissors to do those. Cut right into that point. And I'm cutting 2 layers at the same time. Remember, I'm cutting both layers of this fabric together. I'm just gonna keep them together as I cut. See, there's 2 layers there. And we put them right sides together so that when it's time to sew, we can just sew them easily together. They're gonna exactly fit together. Now I told you that, but our next step is gonna be to take these apart and sew these darts in appropriately. So let's go over to our sewing machine and do that right now. So I'm here at the sewing machine and I'm gonna take these 2 apart and I'm gonna sew in the darts, which means I need to fold along that line and get it exactly folded in half. And then I'm gonna stitch 1/4 of an inch down this line right to that center and come off of there. Now, some people will ask me why I'm not having to clip threads. I actually have an automatic thread cutter on my sewing machine, and it was a $100 upgrade on this machine, and I'm gonna tell you, it was worth every single penny. I cannot imagine sewing without it. So that's gonna create our dart for the front of our face, so it'll go around that piece. So now I'm gonna go ahead and do the other one the same way, right sides together. Fold it over, right sides together. And then I'm gonna just stitch 1/4 inch seam right along that dart. These fabrics are left over from a quilt that I made, I don't know, 10 years ago, I think. But I did make sure the fabrics are still good and washed them, and they're doing well. All right, those are the pieces that we're going to now use when we put this together, and they're gonna go faces together. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go ahead and put them right sides together. And I am going to sew, I'm gonna sew basically all around from up to the bottom here, up, in, out, down, and all the way around. So let's put that together and you can see what it's gonna look like. So I do need to clip this together. So I'm gonna get my clips out. That's gonna be important. I think it's gonna help me to sew it better. I'm gonna leave the very bottom edge open down here because that's where we're gonna turn it, and we're gonna do something fun with those tails that stick out. So, but I will line these 2 corners up. And remember, they're right sides together of the fabric together. I'm gonna line those corners up, and you'll see our darts will line up together too. And I'll put a clip in there. And I'm gonna do that all the way down here. I'll go right around that section. Now you could, if you wanted, turn one set of darts one direction and one the other so that they nest right into each other and put a clip right over top of it. That would be great. It's also gonna be important to remember where our halfway mark was that we had done here, and that actually was right there. And there's a reason for that, and I'm gonna show you why. Because that's where we need to change our seam allowance a little bit so that we can fold this inside. It'll make sense in just a minute. So I'm gonna go down here and keep putting our clips on. Right, I'm just lining them up together. And this fabric's interesting because it looks sort of the same on the front and the back. You just have to make sure you know which side is the front, which side's the back. So I got all these corners to fit together, right? And these are gonna be inside corners that we do. So we're gonna have to be real careful when we sew it together. I'll show you how to clip those and turn them so you get nice and crisp corners. We're gonna go all the way around. So again, I'm gonna go up here. The 2 sides are gonna get sewn differently than the rest of it. And again, we're gonna find that mark where I had marked the halfway point earlier. I'll be real careful with that. And then I'm going to see which side. This one was folded up, so I'm gonna fold that up. Fold the other one the other direction so I can clip right onto that. Let's clip those together and then down to the end here. All right, to the sewing machine so we can sew this whole thing, this whole situation together. Ooh. All right, so I'm gonna start sewing on this lighter side, and I'm gonna leave that entire bottom edge open. Okay, so I'm gonna sew all the way down and around this. What I'm gonna do though first is I'm gonna come in here and find my corner there, and I'm gonna use a 1/4 inch seam allowance down at this end. 1/4 inch seam allowance, get myself up toward that clip. I'll take the clip out. It does turn a little bit at that piece. And I'm gonna come down here to the point that I marked. Okay, then what I'm gonna do is, it's gonna sound a little strange, I'm gonna jog over 1/8 of an inch. The tiniest amount. And now I'm gonna go to a 3/8 inch seam allowance, just to the end of this. So you'll notice I'm giving a little more space right in there. It's a little past the edge of the presser foot. The presser foot's a 1/4 inch, that's about 3/8 of an inch. And I'm gonna go off the end now. So now I've sewn that entire edge down. You'll notice here it jogs, which is very unusual. Then I'm gonna come here and keep sewing my 1/4 inch seam allowance the rest of this direction. Actually, I'm not gonna do the ends here. I should have explained that better. I'm gonna leave these ends open. Both of these ends will be open. But I'm gonna go to the inside and do my 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I backstitch because I'm just so used to it, but also because it will help secure it in here. I should get these clips out of the way. Now I go down about 1/4 of an inch, and I can spin it with I use my needle down position. On my sewing machine, there's a button up here that lets me put needle up, needle down. And so I'm going to get myself to where it's now about 1/4 of an inch using the presser foot as my guide. And keep going down. Take my other clip out. Stop at about 1/4 of an inch so I can pivot. Needs about one more stitch. Okay, pivot it. Take that off the end and just go right off the end. I'm gonna backstitch because this is gonna get turned and I want it to work as well as possible. Now remember, just like on this side where we did a 3/8 inch seam, we also need to do on the other side. So again, I'm gonna do this at a 3/8 inch seam, not a 1/4 inch seam. And I'm gonna do that all the way down to that mark here, which is our halfway mark. So I go all the way to that mark, stop with my needle down, turn it. I'm gonna come about 1/8 of an inch, which was about, not quite, it's about a stitch, okay. And then I'm gonna come finish. I'm gonna finish the rest at 1/4 of an inch seam. Stitch off the end. So you'll see there what I've done. You can see where it jogs over on both sides. And it's ready for us to turn this inside out and show you the next part of the sewing. All right, so there's our piece that's done. I'm gonna turn this inside out, but before I do that, I need to clip into these corners. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get my scissors out and I'm gonna go to the corner there and clip just into that point there so that it opens it up, see? I'm gonna do the same thing on this other side. I'll show you what it looks like on the red side there. Clip right into that. Okay, so those are open and it's gonna let me turn this a lot easier. And I'll literally just go into that big open place I did at the bottom and turn them, point them out like big tall ears that are gonna stick out. And this is where, because it's so thin in there, that you can use your purple thing or whatever, or your bodkin or your stiletto. And I'm actually gonna use the flatter side on this to do that because I don't wanna hurt anything. Some people also use like forceps, is that what they're called? They're very small, they're like little clamps or pliers. So this is fun, trying to get that out of there. Now I'll tell you, one of the things that the reason I've done this way is I wanna make it easier for you to get your disposable mask in and out. I saw quite a few that really completely enclose and encase a surgical mask or whatever they call that, a temporary mask. But it looked like it was really difficult to reach your hands in and shove it through. And in fact, I'll show you real quick. I made a version like that. See, just it's a sleeve, and you have to open it up and put that mask through. But it was just really hard to get that in and pull it through. And then it was hard to like adjust the nose piece or anything. And I just felt like it was not gonna work as good as possible. So you could certainly make that kind, and it's real easy to make. You can use just the bottom portion of the pattern that I showed you and make 2 of them and put them together. But it was a little harder to get your hand in there and grab the nose wire, and I wasn't a huge fan. So that's why I'm making this version. All right, back to turning this. Oh, there's my orange thing. All right, and again, we're gonna push from the bottom through and really push all of that material out the other side. So here we go. Give it a little love, push it through. Then we're gonna go to the iron and actually iron this thing out. Ooh. You know, I used to, I made a project once that required me to like turn 40 feet of material like this small, and oh my goodness, there are easier ways than what I just did. But that's finished, so we can go to the iron and actually iron it out. So follow me. All right, here at the iron, I've got my awesome little home ever iron, which the link will be down in the description if you want to buy one of these. I love it because it's got so much steam comes out. It's amazing. So we're going to flatten this out, and one of the ways we have to do that is to really get here and push all these little parts out. I'm just going to give it some steam love, flatten it out. Now you're not going to be able to flatten out the area where your darts are, obviously, because they're meant to put in shape. That's the whole point of darts. So don't try to take them out, but you are going to be able to flatten around them. So I want to flatten the sides as well. See here. I'll go all the way down each side here. Oh, I love it. I love this iron, and I love steam. Now, if you're ironing, or if you're sewing, but you're not using steam, I don't think you're doing it right, just so you know. All right, now here's the reason why we shortened the size of these and made it a bigger seam. Because I'm going to turn these down here, and I want it to be able to be caught in the seam appropriately. So I'm going to turn this down, and I'm going to put a clip. Now that we have to decide which side we want out. Do we want the red side out, or do we want the green and whatever side out? We have to decide which side's going to be the outside. I'm going to do it this way, and it's nice because it'll actually kind of make it reversible. So I'm excited to show you how that would work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these clips and clip right here at the bottom. See? Clip that. With my fabric going a little over. I have to go a little over and a little inside, right? It has to be inside that seam. So it's got to be a little bit inside, and it's got to extend beyond this fabric a little bit. Otherwise, the magic won't work. So you see how I have a little bit of room there? Right here, I've got a little bit of room before that starts, and over here, I've got a little bit of room before that starts. And the next thing I'm gonna do while that is being held in so beautifully, I'm gonna turn the other layer back inside out. See what I've done? So now I have this bottom line ready to be stitched. And what I'm gonna do is transfer my clip, so I will hold on to this, all the layers with my fingers, and just take the clip and put it around all of the fabrics. Same thing over here. I'm holding on to all of those fabrics in my hand, line it up next to here, take all of that clip off and add it. And I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna add a few more clips. Now I have to leave a section here to turn inside out. So I'm gonna use those clips to tell me sort of where to stop. So I'm gonna start sewing at one clip and go to the end, and start at the other and go to the other end. I'm gonna sew those 2 pieces on, and then we will be able to magically turn this inside out. All right, off to the sewing machine. Okay, so here we are. I am going to start sewing at the end here, and I'm gonna put my hand down and hold all of those layers together. And I'm gonna use a little more than a 1/4 inch seam allowance just because I can. Stitch over top of that and go to this, and then backspace, back stitch. Okay, and that's been now handled, stitched there. And then I'm gonna go flip it over and do the same thing on the other side here. A little bit more than a 1/4 inch seam allowance, not quite a 3/8, somewhere in there. And I'll stitch down to this clip, stop and turn it, back stitch, and now I have the opening, and that's where I'm gonna turn this whole thing inside out. So, watch what we do. We get our fingers in there somehow. Little work. Yes, there we go. And I'm gonna very carefully birth that back out the other side for you. Takes a little bit of time here. I could have left a bigger opening too, but I don't know, I guess I'm just too anxious. So I didn't. Oh. And then as you get more through, it goes out faster. You can pull on the fabrics to flip it inside out. Oh, look at that. And what we've gotten is, yes, this piece here. Now what I want to do is I want to flatten this out and stitch this bottom edge down. Now you could do it by hand if you wanted to. If you didn't want to see it, you could do like a ladder stitch. But in fact, I'm just going to use the sewing machine. And I'm going to run the sewing machine. I'm not going to run it over these. I'm not going to flip these and run it over. I'm going to run it on the inside. So what I'm going to do is literally come in here and open it up and flatten it. Put my stitch down. And in fact, I want to give you a different view of this. That's a better view. So I'm going to start and stitch right along here. And you might want to use a matching colored thread. And just remember, you've got this opening, you're going to have to let it follow you. So I'm holding this opening so that I can stitch through it, if that makes sense. And I'm going to keep going all the way down because I want to stitch over that. And what that's done is it has stitched closed that fabric opening that we had left on the bottom. All right, let's go back to the cutting table and I'll show you what we have done with this. Actually, let's go to the iron. That's even better. So back here at the iron, I've got that set up, right? Let me clip a thread here. Oh my goodness. And we know that this is the bottom. This part right here is the bottom. So I can sort of fold that in half flat, and then that shows me where my top portion is. So then I can give that a quick press with the iron. Now I don't want to stitch across that because I want to be able to flip this, because see here, this is the version that we would take this mask and put it inside, into one side. And I like this opening because I can then reach through with my hands. And then I can also push up with the top because I want that nose piece out. So now look what I've done. I've created that. And I've got a mask cover. But maybe I don't really just love this color. Maybe I also like the other color and I want to switch it up some other day. So then what I do is I would just take the mask out. And that's why I like this hand part. And I would just turn the whole thing inside out. Look at this. Whole thing inside out. Maybe just press with my hand the whole thing inside out. Push those darts in. Put our mask in. Make sure your nose piece is at the top. I also like the fact that this extra fabric kind of gives you a little bit of cover for your nose. You're not having to worry about your nose hurting as much. Again, put that nose wire all the way up to the top. Now, if you wanted, you could run a stitch along that top to show you where the top should be folded, and that might be fun. But don't run it between the fabrics. Just do it, open it up and run it. And now we've got that color. All right, here you go. This is the mask with the cover like that. And you'll see it's open. Now, I left it open because, again, I want to be able to take it out easily. I think this is a little easier to do. So let me go ahead and put the nose wire sort of up near the top. Use my hand to do that. Get that on my nose. Pull the side things down. And now I've got that nice cover. And it's darted so it fits a little better, right? Not a bad look, but I'm going to turn it inside out because I want to be able to switch the whole thing inside out. So I will take that out and fold my pieces back out that way. So again, we have this type of mask design. I'm going to put my disposable mask back into it. Pull those earpieces through. Get the nose up here where I want that nose wire to go. And it goes on my face again. And now I've got a cover for a disposable mask that looks a little nicer than a standard disposable mask. Now here's what it does that's kind of nice. It does give you an extra 2 layers of fabric right here where your mouth is going to be. And you'll notice that we cut the darts in the sides. They're not right at the front of your mouth, so you're not worried about your, the breath that you breathe straight in and out going through holes that's been cut into the mask. I think that's helpful. Let me give you some ratings, even though this isn't a standard mask. I'm going to say that in terms of comfort, it's actually really comfortable to wear. I don't really love these disposable masks because sometimes the inside can be a little unpleasant, or the nose wire can be unpleasant. So in fact, if I just needed a quick mask to wear for a short period of time, this one's nice because it does give me the extra protection. The ear parts are not as hard. If I were you and if you have a smaller face than me, I would follow the CDC's suggestion and tie knots in these to make them a little shorter. And then of course the extra fabric not only is more comfortable because it's a softer fabric, but in fact I feel a little bit easier to throw this in the washing machine because it doesn't have a nose wire in the fabric, right? And it doesn't have the elastic that can get stretched out. So in terms of comfort, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. It's fantastic. In terms of ease to make, I actually thought that was pretty easy to make. The hardest part, of course, is drawing out the pattern and figuring out how to put that on. But again, I'm going to print this on a piece of paper so you can more easily do that for yourself. And then, of course, so that's probably for ease of making. I'm going to give it sort of a 9 out of 10 as well, because you don't need any special tools to do it. It's pretty easy. And then for efficacy, not for the CDC's newest suggestion that you should double up on your mask. I don't think it quite gets there, but it is better than just wearing the standard disposable mask by itself. And so from that perspective, for efficacy, I'm also going to give it a 9 out of 10 because I think in terms of what it can do, it does it quite well. And it means that you can use a disposable mask and have a nice cover that you could switch out. And you could carry 3 or 4 of these covers around and switch them depending upon where you're going and what you're doing. So that has been this cover for a disposable face mask, and it's reversible. So how great is that? Until next time, folks, please like, subscribe, follow the channel, join our Facebook group called Shiny Happy People, and you can find a link down in the description below. And until next time, stay crafty. Bye for now. I should put one on one side fabric that says, leave me alone, and one fabric that says, all right, I'll deal with your stuff today.